Christmas tree has been up in my office for now over a month. How many of you still haven't decorated for Christmas? Scrooge. Anyway, on my way to the sanctuary, I grabbed this wrapped present from under the tree. And here's the deal. I will sell you this box, but I won't tell you what's in it. And all sales are final. No returning it, no giving it back. I will sell this box to the first person who brings me 20 bucks. All right, come on up here, Brittany. She's going to make the $20 deal. Now, I'm going to take the 20 bucks. Now, why did Brittany spend $20 on an unknown box? Kind of seems like a risk. It could be empty. It could have something silly in it, like a fidget spinner or an autographed picture of Pastor Parker. So it could be a complete waste of $20. Brittany paid $20 for the box for one reason. She trusts me. She knows my history. She's seen me give away stuff before. She's watched me over time, and she knows I give good things. So open the box. Let's see what's in it. Quickly. We don't have all day. Yep, we're not saving the box. The box is yours to keep today. There you go. Okay, I'll show it. Inside the box, she paid $20 for. There's $25 movie gift card. She already $5 in the positive. $25 Starbucks card. $10 Sonic card. $10 Chick-fil-A card. $15 iTunes card. And $15 Dairy Queen card. Good purchase, Brittany. Well done. Now, trust is the reason Brittany bought the box. She trusted the value would be greater than the cost. See, trust and value are connected. The more you trust, the more willing you are to pay the price. Not sure? Well, think about it this way. You're going to buy a used car, and there are two cars that are basically the same. They look the same, they sound the same, almost identical mileage. One costs $5,000, the other costs $5,500. The $5,000 car is being sold by someone you don't know who seems really nervous. He keeps looking over his shoulder. When a siren sounds in the distance, he gets jumpy. And he says to you, it runs perfect, never had a problem, you'll love it. But this deal is only good if you pay me right now in cash, and it needs to be unmarked $20 bills. The $5,500 car is being sold by Pastor Tyler. Tyler says, if you want to have a mechanic look it over, that's fine with me. In fact, I'll give you a 90-day warranty. If something goes wrong, I'll pay half. If it takes you a couple days to get the money together, no problem, I'll hold it for you. Now, which car would you buy? The lower price car or the higher price car? Yeah, most of us would pay an extra $500 because you trust Pastor Tyler. You know his car will be worth the money because you know him. Trust and value are connected. The more you trust, the more you're willing to pay the price. Maybe after 3 years of dating, you're finally going to buy an engagement ring. It's time. It's past time. It's way past time. You're smart, other than that. You don't buy into the spend 3 months of your salary on a ring marketing gimmick. You've been saving your money. You have $2,500 to spend. So who will you buy the ring from? This guy has quite a few rings available. In fact, he says, if I don't have what you want, give me a day or two, I'll get it. I get new merchandise in all the time. For $2,500, I can give you a big ring. When you ask for an appraisal, he looks at you like you're crazy, and he says, what do I look like, Sissy's Log Cabin? I don't do paperwork. When you ask if he takes credit cards, the answer is yes, and then he shows you a big stack of credit cards. Your other option is Sissy's Log Cabin, one of the most well-known jewelry stores in the state. When you tell the salesman you have $2,500 to spend, he says, okay, let me show you the rings we have at that price point. Now, you're going to have to make a choice. Do you want a small stone that's high quality, or a larger stone with less quality. Whatever you pick, I've got good news for you. When your wife wants to upgrade to a bigger ring, which, just as an aside, trust me, she will. And what I'm about to say, they'll tell you, but it never happens. When guys think upgrade, we think trade in the old one. No, that's got sentimental value. Even though it's not good enough to be on the finger anymore, it's got sentimental value to put away in a drawer somewhere. Yes, thank you. You getting a sense is coming from someone who's been there? Anyway, the guy says, when your wife wants to trade up, you can bring this ring in. We'll give you full purchase price on a trade-in. Now, who would you buy the ring from? Easy decision. You'd buy the ring from Sissies, even though it's a smaller stone, because you trust them and you know you'll get your money's worth. Trust and value are connected. The more you trust, the more willing you are to pay the price, and the higher price you're willing to pay. Jesus had only 3 years of active ministry on earth. In that short time, you would expect Jesus to find the smartest, the brightest, the leaders with the most potential. You'd expect Jesus to collect the greatest assemblance of all-stars the world had ever seen. Brilliant speakers who could wow a crowd and convince them to change. Gifted organizers who could make his ministry efficient. Leaders of religion, business, and politics, people with influence. Strong people with high moral standards who were respected and admired in the community. Winners. And you'd expect Jesus would have an absolutely winning recruiting speech because time was short. And here's what you expect Jesus to tell the guys he's recruiting for his team. Come with me. It will be an amazing adventure. Crowds will listen to you preach. You'll see miracles. Hey, you'll do miracles. I'll make you famous. And you won't be famous for just a little while. Thousands of years from now, people will still be reading about you. Men and women will stand in front of large crowds and tell stories about you. I know this is hard to imagine, but one day there will be something called the internet. Millions of people will hear and read about what you did. Because you decided to follow me, I'll make you a star. That's what you expect, but Jesus did the exact opposite. He didn't promise fame, fortune, or adventure. One day while Jesus was teaching, he saw a tax collector named Matthew sitting at his tax collecting booth. Jesus looked at him and said, follow me. Nothing else. No promises, no sales job. Follow me. And Matthew did. He left his family, his money, his business behind. He followed Jesus. What made Matthew decide Jesus was worth it? It was trust. Trust and value are connected. The more you trust, the more willing you are to pay the price. Matthew chapter 4, as Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, called Peter, and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, for they were fishermen. Follow me, Jesus said, I'll make you fishers of men. At once, they left their nets and followed him. They left their nets, they left the fish. They left the business to follow Jesus, and they did it at once with no questions, no doubts. They followed because they trusted that Jesus' plan for their life was better than their plan. See, trust and value are connected. The more you trust, the more willing you are to pay the price, and the higher the price you're willing to pay. Peter and Andrew decided Jesus is worth it. Going on from there, Jesus saw two other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John. They were in a boat with their father preparing their nets. Jesus called them. Immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. They walked away from their boat, their nets, their business, and their business partner who happened to be their dad. They didn't think about it. They didn't consider it. They didn't ask, what's in it for me? Instead, they immediately left everything and followed Jesus because they trusted him. Trust and value are connected. The more you trust, the more you're willing to pay the price, and the higher the price you're willing to pay. James and John decided Jesus is worth it. Jesus' call was to come follow. They didn't know what was coming next. It was a command without a promise. Can you imagine if we said that to people? Hey, we have commands with promises, and people still struggle to follow, even though they know the deal, even though they know the result. People won't tithe, don't give the first 10% of their income to God, and they have a promise. Do you really think they would fully follow with no promise? Mark 10 tells the story of another guy, same opportunity. As Jesus started on his way, a man ran up to him, fell on his knees before him. "Good teacher," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" "Why do you call me good?" Jesus answered. "No one is good except God alone. You know the commandments: do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not give false testimony, do not defraud, honor your father and mother." "Teacher," he said, "I've kept all these since I was a boy." Jesus looked at him and said, "One thing you lack. Go, sell everything you have and give to the poor, and you'll have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me." At this the man's face fell. He went away sad because he had great wealth. We don't even know the guy's name. The only reason he made the Bible is as a negative example. He had high hopes, but he wasn't willing to pay the price to follow Jesus. He didn't trust Jesus' words. The treasure in heaven would be greater than treasure on earth. Trust and value are connected. The more you trust, the more willing you are to pay the price. And this guy decided Jesus couldn't be trusted, that he wasn't worth it. And I wonder how many other people didn't make the Bible because when Jesus said, "Come," they decided it wasn't worth it. Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians, 5 times I received from the Jews the 40 lashes minus 1, which, by the way, is 39. I don't know why he wrote it that way. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. I spent a night and a day in the open sea. I've been constantly on the move. I've been in danger from rivers, in danger from bandits, in dangers from my own countrymen, in dangers from Gentiles, in danger in the city, in danger in the country, in danger at sea, and in danger from false brothers. I've labored and toiled, often gone without sleep. I've known a hunger and thirst, and I've often gone without food. I've been cold and naked. Besides everything else, I've faced daily the pressure of my concern for the churches. Now that sounds like a tough life, doesn't it? And finally, at the end of his life, looking back on his experiences, Paul wrote, "I wish I'd done my own thing. I wish I'd gone my own way. The pain was too great. The price was too high. Following Jesus wasn't worth it." Well, that's not what Paul wrote. In fact, look what Paul's words actually were. "I'm already being poured out like a drink offering, and the time has come for my departure. I have fought the good fight." Wait, I thought he just said he was beaten and stoned and whipped and shipwrecked. It's a good fight. "I've finished the race. I've kept the faith. And now there is in store for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award me on that day. And not just me, but all who have longed for his appearing." Before the shipwrecks, beatings, hunger, prison, and danger, Paul decided, I'm in this for life. I will serve Jesus no matter what it costs. Jesus is worth it. Paul, because he trusted Jesus, was willing to pay a high price. Trust and value are connected. The more you trust, the more you're willing to pay the price, and the higher the price you're willing to pay. Life is made up of many value decisions, and every day you decide what matters. With your money, your words, your decisions, you send a value message. And here's my question: what is Jesus worth to you? Are you willing to die for Jesus? Don't answer that too quickly. Because if you're not willing to live for Jesus, you certainly won't die for him. We have to decide, is Jesus worth being made fun of? Is Jesus worth your money? Is Jesus worth not fitting in? What's Jesus worth? Is Jesus worth losing your job? Is Jesus worth losing your friends, your family? Is Jesus worth everything? John chapter 15, Jesus told his disciples and us, if the world hates you, keep in mind it hated me first. If you belong to the world, it would love you as its own. As it is, you don't belong to the world. I've chosen you out of the world. That's why the world hates you. Remember the words I spoke to you. No servant is greater than his master. And then Jesus gave this wonderful promise that we can stand on. If they persecuted me, they will persecute you also. Is Jesus worth persecution and opposition? Is Jesus worth being hated? Is Jesus worth it? See, trust and value are connected. The more you trust Jesus, the more you're willing to pay a high price to follow, and the higher the price you're willing to pay. In America, we have it relatively easy. But all over the world, people pay a high price for following Jesus. In the Middle East, in one of the most dangerous and difficult places to follow Jesus, a place where we've invested a lot of missions money, 9 men who were once Islamic religious leaders, just this last year went public with their new faith in Jesus. Our missionary was against it. He said, guys, this is going to be too bad. But they felt like they needed to do it. Here's what's interesting. The 9 men had communicated secretly with each other under false names over text. They knew each other in real life, but they didn't know that the people they knew in real life were the people they were communicating with in secret. They all agreed in their secret communication to go public at the same time. And only when they went public did they discover who the others were. 1 week later, the Palestinian Authority arrested them for their own safety. They kept them for a month and pressured them to give up the names of other believers. They didn't give in. After a month, they were removed from prison, instead to house arrest, and one of the 9 refused to stay home. He kept going out and sharing his faith. And so finally the terrorist group Hamas grabbed him and drug him into the middle of town. They took chains with large metal hooks on the end and they beat him to a bloody pulp. And then thinking he was dead, they left him there. Hamas videotaped the beating and shared it with this message: this is what we do to Christian converts. Some local people took him to the hospital. His face and head were bashed in. He lost one eye. He had at least 50 staples in his head. His face was unrecognizable. You gave money to help him with the surgeries and to help his wife and children who went into hiding for their protection. But this former Muslim leader hasn't given up on his faith. He asked our missionary to bring a video camera. And he made a video from the hospital room to the men who beat him. And he started the video this way: my dear brothers, I love you. He went on to tell them he forgave them. He said, you see me in this bed hurting, and I can't get out of it now. But when I can, if you need something, ask me, I will help you. Because once I was like you, trying to serve God, but doing it wrong. And I pray you will find Jesus. His testimony in suffering is remarkable. He decided Jesus is worth it. Trust and value are connected. The more you trust Jesus, the higher the price you're willing to pay. One of our missionaries sent me this email. I have a friend I see once a month. We never meet in the same place. We exchange a text and a meeting place, and a time is established. We enjoy our visits, but Omar does not want to be seen with me too often because Omar is a secret believer in Jesus. Omar became a Christian because Jesus came to him in many dreams over a 6-month period, declaring to be God. This was simultaneously peaceful and upsetting since it contradicted everything he grew up hearing and believing. As far as we know, he never had contact with another believer during that time. Now, Omar is the leader of a small group of secret believers. It's impossible for them to have open worship, so he meets with the believers once a month to worship, to encourage one another. They move the meetings every month for security and safety. The group has a strong desire to share the good news that has changed their lives, but they recognize the danger. Most of them now are leading groups of their own. Jesus often warned people to consider the cost of following him. In a Western context, the costs are not too high. But believers here know the cost. Shunning by the culture, banishment from family, loss of employment, imprisonment, and possibly death. Yet they continue to meet, pray, and worship. I asked Omar why. Why would you do it? And with conviction he said, Jesus has given me life, hope, and peace. I'm convinced Jesus wants me to share what I've been given in my native country. He realizes he could flee to the West. He could appeal for asylum. Many have, but that would be disobedience. Omar said, I've considered the cost, and it pales in comparison to what it cost Jesus to save me. Trust and value are connected. The more you trust Jesus, the more you're willing to pay a high price to follow. In Mogadishu, Somalia, people who decide to follow Jesus pay a high price. They're fired from their jobs, kicked out of their families, forced to leave their homes. There are approximately 300 believers in Mogadishu. On average, 5 of them are killed a month, 50 this year. Trust and value are connected. The more you trust Jesus, the more willing you are to pay a high price to follow. In Kafala, Sudan, when a group of men were arrested for sharing their faith, the woman who was with them began sobbing, not because they were being taken away, but because she wasn't considered worthy to be persecuted. One of the pastors said, if we die, we should die for the right thing. If we die for Christ. See, trust and value are connected. The more you trust, the more willing you are to pay a high price to follow. One of the questions I've been asking myself is, why are Christians in other countries willing to pay a high price to follow Jesus? Why are they willing to give their lives and people in America are reluctant to give their money or share their faith or come to church if it's raining or complain if the temperature isn't right in the sanctuary? Why are they willing to die, but here if things go wrong or get uncomfortable, people walk away? I don't know all the answers, but I think they hold Jesus more dear. Jesus matters more to them because they pay a higher price. Their faith is stronger. Their commitment is greater because from the very beginning, they knew there would be a great price to pay. They put all their trust in Jesus. Trust and value are connected. The more you trust Jesus, the more willing you are to pay a high price to follow. Recently, a young adult in our church came and talked to me. He's in line at his job to get a big bonus at the end of the year. It's going to be around $10,000. And he came to tell me about it and to say that God spoke to he and his wife earlier this year that they were supposed to give the entire bonus to missions, to a very specific missions project. And I just listened, and then he said something I'll always remember. I wrote it down so I could share it with you. He said, if I'm not willing to give God my bonus, how will we ever say yes when God asks us to give our lives? It's powerful. Trust and value are connected. The more you trust Jesus, the more willing you are to pay a high price to follow. Through missions, we partner with men and women who willingly pay a high price to share Jesus and his love because they have deep trust. There's a pledge card in your bulletin today that looks like this. I want you to take it out. We make a commitment every October for the next 12 months. What we will give to missions to reach people here in Central Arkansas and around the world. If you're watching online, there's a button you can hit on the bottom of the screen, or if you're watching a full screen version, you can find it at firstnlr.com/pledge. Every year, Cindy and I increase our commitment to missions. We started 26 years ago with a pledge of $5 a week. And every year, we've raised our pledge by at least $5 a week, some years more. And we're raising our pledge again for 2018. And you're smart. You did the math. You say, Pastor Rod, that's a lot of money. Jesus is worth it. And we trust him. Many of you have been giving to missions for years. Would you join me in increasing what you give? If everyone in our church family, at all our campuses, just gave $1 more a week, next year, 2018, we'll have $400,000 more dollars to give to missions, to fund projects, and to send missionaries around the world. Some of you have never made a commitment to missions, and I challenge you to start. I suggest you begin with at least $5 a week, less than the price of one coffee from Starbucks. But I challenge you, don't pay more for cable TV than you give to reach the world. And again, it's a question. Is sharing Jesus worth more than a cup of coffee? Is sharing Jesus worth more than cable TV or high-speed internet? It's a question of trust and value. Trust and value are connected. The more you trust Jesus, the more willing you are to pay a high price to follow him and to share his love with others. Where does the money go? We support 222 missionaries in 92 countries and regions. Your regular giving keeps them on the field. We don't take any administrative expense out of your missions dollars. Not a single penny goes to overhead, salaries, travel, or postage. Instead, every single penny of your money goes towards the mission, to preach the gospel to the whole world. Take a moment and write down your commitment. You say, well, I don't like writing commitments. Well, that presents us a problem because we make our commitments based on your commitments. And so your commitments are what allows us to say yes to a missionary who needs a commitment so they can go to the field. Let me take you back to Sudan. Former Muslim who's now a believer has no church in his city. He doesn't own a Bible. He calls his pastor in another city once a week, and the pastor reads scripture to him over the phone. If they were caught, they'd both be put in prison or killed. And the pastor said this. I want to say it slowly so you catch it. It is not love if I ask, if I help this person, what will happen to me? It is love if I ask, if I don't help this person, what will happen to him?